Today's video is one that I've thought about for several days. It was a rant at one point, and then it was merely an analytical piece at another. And now it's somewhere in between, right in the middle, which is probably right where it needs to be. It covers a subject very close to my heart. Well, maybe two subjects. From the film that lit the fire in me, to the origin of expansive imagination and creation. If you know me at all, you know I'm talking about Star Wars and Disney. And since you probably know me, you know that I've been mourning both Star Wars and Disney for several years now. Many of you are. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the concrete shoes that Star Wars and so many other similar IPs are now wearing these days. Neo-Marxist identitarian theology, masking itself as DIE. Division, indoctrination, and exclusion. You know, the checkbox mafia that's inserted into everything to destroy the fabric of, well, civilized society. And to get even more granular, we will hyper-focus in specifically on the latest smooth-brained hire by Disney for Star Wars specifically. Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, or Sock, as in sock puppet. Yeah. That's what we're going to call her today. And believe it or not, that's what she's referred to, Sock. So, buckle up. Here we go. So let's start broadly. 2024 is going to be a very bad year for Disney, on every front, in every way. Disney's destroying itself and its corporate value on the altar of intersectional identitarianism. They've become so radically different from the company's core values that it maintained for, well, almost its entire existence. That is, until it became the Iger Corporation over the last 10 years. And thank you, Jonas J. Campbell, for that change in nomenclature. Today, Disney, under Iger's iron-fisted rule, has become the pop cultural equivalent of a neo-Marxist theologian. No, wait, that's far too kind. It's become a roadside carnival barker, leading the entranced, indoctrinated dullards into their own demise with the use of a magical elixir, a snake oil potion of woke, all driven by the democracy-destroying global elitists in service of power, like big tech, big finance, and most importantly, themselves individually. Iger looks only to expand his own power base, and he does it at shareholder expense. At least some of the shareholders have woken up to this realization, and as an aside, be very concerned when you start to hear the term stakeholder, because that's something completely different, and it's a sure sign that a company has gone full woke and is captured completely. Walt, of course, would be flabbergasted at just how compromised his company has become, but let's save that conversation for another video. But enough of the preamble. Let's get to today's useful sycophant, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, or Sock, S-O-C, as we'll be calling her from now on. You see, Sock has been going fully on the offensive lately for, well, at least the last several weeks in an effort to keep her culture and lore-destroying Star Wars project front and center. You see, when Star Wars projects encounter enough resistance from within, or oftentimes without, people usually get fired. Just ask the ever-growing list of people that, well, I happen to have right here. You've got Michael Arndt, Gary Whitta, Josh Trank, Lord and Miller, Alexander Desplat, Gareth Edwards, Colin Trevorrow, James Mangold, Stephen Daldry, Rian Johnson and his trilogy, Benioff and Weiss and their trilogy, Stephen Schiff, J.D. Dillard, Matt Owens, Stuart Beatty, Hussein Amini, Patty Jenkins, Taika Christie Cairns, Justin Simeon, Damon Lindelof, Kevin Feige, Justin Britt Gibson, and many, many more. Way, way more than you could possibly imagine. Could the Sock land on this list? Well, her platitudes and outline of the project recently has also given rise to discoveries of her, telling you who she actually is, for example. Sock Puppet is not a trained filmmaker. Not that experience is a requisite for Disney any longer. They don't hire qualified people or choose people of any kind of merit. They look for the politically aligned ideologues to do jobs that they're unqualified for. All that matters is the politics And boy, do they have that in sock, and then some. If you don't believe me,
I think at the heart of everything, I am a storyteller and an activist. And my body of work over the last 20 years has been guided by my activism. And every single piece of work that I've ever created has a piece of activism in it. It could be very overt or it could be covert, but it is there. And I think that as a storyteller, I'm not sure if all of you know this, but I'm not a trained filmmaker. So I never went to film school. I went to Smith College and did my undergraduate and studied economics and political science like a good Pakistani girl. And then I did my graduate studies, but also in international politics. And so I am an accidental filmmaker.
From her own mouth, I'm an accidental filmmaker. I'm an activist. How many times does she tout her education, ethnicity, and hit all of the amazing buzzwords that, well, certain centers of power want to hear? And even if you can set aside her speaking engagement at the WEF in 2013, you can't excuse all the returns that she made there, including being the co-chair in 2017. She's speaking their language, and obviously, they're digging it. I bet you didn't know she was the co-chair at the WEF in Davos, right? Anyway. Everything she speaks to is the divisive rhetoric that radical political extremists are preaching right now. And who is bringing her in right at this moment? The most thoroughly captured and owned entertainment enterprise, Disney. This unqualified, meritless person has been given not one opportunity at Disney. No. She was, of course, a co-director during a stint of the Ms. Marvel show, at least for a few episodes. You know, the Disney Plus show that nobody watched, which preceded a film, The Marvels, which also nobody watched. Look, if you don't think it's weird that a political radical is doing Hollywood tentpoles that the elites are positively gushing over, let's take a look at the recent project she was involved in, funded by your tax dollars. This is true. Yeah, the U.S. consulate in Karachi funded in part Obaid Chinoy's stories from southern Pakistan through her Patakha Pictures production company. Sorry, I don't really know the language. Of course, many of these funded projects hit all of the current globalist elites' talking points there, focusing on climate change and the other UN greatest hits. And it's no secret, if the UN loves you, you should reevaluate what you're doing with your life, because the UN, not the good guys. To reinforce the idea that she is a sock puppet, her company literally is called SOC, SOC Films, SOC Films. I can't make that up. And that company now hosts an international art residency program. It may seem crazy, but most of her funding prior to Disney is tied to governments and NGOs. I think there's only one other major corp that has ever done anything associated with her, and I think it was HBO with LeBron James, which is also telling. And I know that this is a long video, but I ask you to bear with me just a little longer, because I'm sure you would agree nobody believed that this woman would actually end up directing a Star Wars film, even when it was publicized all the way back in October of 2022. I mean, come on. This woman is keen on fighting for the most divisive topics. Surely, Disney wouldn't continue to invite that into a mix where they're already losing customers at an alarming and escalating rate, right? I mean, films about the Taliban and a film about reassignment in Pakistan. Yeah, I gotta say that very carefully. I mean, the powers that be don't like it when you talk about those subjects, but that's what she's doing. I mean, literally, this is a walking, talking radical that reeks of anti-family, anti-American hate speech all the time. And not to mention, she openly loathes men. And by now, I'm certain that you've seen this particular gem. Grant, roll that man-hating clip.
What is the balance of activating a force for change, but also trying to permeate that patriarchy, that power structure? And is that a part of the calculation of your art as well? And what's been the reaction to that?
Oh, absolutely. I like to make men uncomfortable. I enjoy making men uncomfortable. Not you, just
Not
you
you.
know, not you.
Point taken. Point taken.
But, it is important to be able to look into the eyes of a man and say, I am here, and recognize that. And recognize that I am working to bring something that makes you uncomfortable, and it should make you uncomfortable because you need to change your attitude. And it's only when you're uncomfortable, when you're shifty, when you have to have difficult conversations, that you will perhaps look at yourself in the mirror and not like the reflection, and then say, maybe there is something wrong with the way I think, or maybe there is something wrong with the way I am addressing this issue.
Not a good look there for Jon Stewart, of course. Yikes. She's also joined on stage by the worst of the worst in the man-hating arena anyway. Wow. You also have to ask yourself, how self-loathing is Jon Stewart to debase himself in this manner? Anyway, if your goal is to make men uncomfortable, that's not going to work out well for a Star Wars audience that's still mostly men. An overall audience that is shrinking with every piece of dog duty you drop under the Kathleen Kennedy woman power brand that used to be known as Lucasfilm. I mean, it won't really work. And I don't care how many times you've seen that particular clip, and I'm sure you've already seen it a few times now as well. There is nothing more telling than those few moments to understand where Kathleen Kennedy's, well, and Bob Iger's head is at. If that is your champion or your champions for Star Wars, you must really want Star Wars to fail. But why? Now, normally you would hear me rail on about something like this, as I mentioned before, a good old-fashioned rant, but I've been using the last few days to reflect and realize the truth. And it's not that there's no spoon. I've come to realize that Disney really could make this movie, and when they do, I'm going to be wrecking them, like for maybe 3 or 4 weeks straight about this film. I'm going to see it, of course, and I'll tell you every bit about it so you don't have to go see it. But this could be quite a financial boon for me, and for other people that are going to cover what is likely going to be the most destructive flop that Disney has ever put out. And that's saying something. I mean, I can break it up into many different parts. I can have hours of content from it, even if it's marginal, or maybe it could be good. I don't think so. There's no prayer of it being good. I mean, they're going to go back to one of the most divisive characters, focusing on alienating half of their audience. So, well, could it be good? Hey, for those of you out there worried I'm judging it before the script is even done, well, you're right. You bet I am. You would have to look at the last 7 years of garbage coming out of Disney Star Wars not to have the lowest possible expectations for this film. I mean, you've got identitarian politics with a garbage Mary Sue character mixed with an unqualified activist, radical, accidental director. This thing is already on its way to the trauma unit by a helicopter with its vital signs failing. I don't think even the Disney money that's going to be thrown at this is going to resuscitate this franchise brand. At best, we're looking at what Andre would call a Frankensteinian monster. It's a disaster with a flop potential, as I mentioned before, that could not only scale the levels of Indiana Jones 5, but easily surpass it. And what's more, it could literally completely destroy anything associated with Lucasfilm. Wow. In the end, I guess we'll see. Look, there's a lot in Sock's proverbial laundry basket at this point, and I am sure that more will be uncovered in the coming weeks, well, in years. In fact, I know for a fact that WDW Pro, Jonas J. Campbell, Valiant Renegade, Midnight's Edge, and of course Mr. H are all working on stories tied into this pending disaster, and, well, its directing party. I also know that there's a huge story that's going to be coming out of Film Threat, and it's set to drop this week as well. So if you're not subscribed to any of those channels I mentioned, you really should be. Don't worry, they'll be down below in the description. Speaking of down there, don't forget to hit the like button and let me know what you think about anything that I said in the comment section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya!